In the wake of the latest special counsel indictment of former President Trump, I'm going to say something that will be controversial. And I will have someone on the other side after I finish my argument. But I have come to conclude that Fani Willis, the Fulton County, Georgia District Attorney, looking into Trump's efforts to overturn the 2020 election results in that state, should drop her case against Trump now that the feds have indicted him for basically the same conduct. Now, she certainly has the legal right to move forward, but it's not the right thing to do. Hear me out. Two main reasons. Number one, the federal case now makes her case duplicative and unnecessary. And number two, her case is already riddled with conflicts and political considerations. Her bringing this case, which it looks like is going to come down next week, is just bad for everyone. And I mean everyone. Let's start with Fani Willis's conduct up to this point. She's given more than 36 media interviews on the investigation. Even the judge overseeing the grand jury said she's, quote, on a national media almost nightly talking about the investigation. And she repeatedly keeps hinting at the outcome as if it's almost a game. I'm not going to quite tell you, but don't worry. He's going to get indicted. The work is accomplished, and we're ready to go.
I've made a commitment to the American people, but most importantly, the citizens of Fulton County, that we were going to be making some big decisions regarding the election investigation, and that I would do that before September the 1st of 2023, and I'm going to hold true to that commitment. The work is accomplished. I mean, we've been working for 2.5 years, and we're ready to go. The sheriff is doing something smart and making sure that the courthouse stays safe. I'm not willing to put any of the employees or the constituents that come to the courthouse in harm's way.
It's obvious what she means by that, and her explanations for why it's taken 2.5 years to get here make little sense.
The right to have your vote protected is a serious one. And so, you know, I've told people many times I'm not going to be rushed. We are doing what is needed for justice.
Rushed? With the special counsel, the delay is more easily understood. Attorney General Merrick Garland likely wasn't going to bring charges against Trump for trying to overturn the election. Even after the January 6th Commission's criminal referrals, it sure didn't seem that Garland was going to act on it, much to the frustration of many liberals. And then the documents case lands on his lap with the former president seemingly trying to prevent the DOJ from getting back highly sensitive government documents at Mar-a-Lago. At that point, Garland apparently feels he has to deal with it, and he eventually appoints a special counsel who then essentially takes it where he wants. That explains that delay. Jack Smith has only been investigating since November of last year. But what could possibly have taken Fani Willis this long? It took her a year to even request a special grand jury. Why? And that grand jury was just advisory, meaning they hear evidence for 8 months and then clearly recommend indictments back in February. How do we know? Well, like Fani Willis, the foreperson just kinda, sorta hints at it.
Did you recommend charges against Donald Trump?
I really don't want to share something that the judge made a conscious decision not to share. I will tell you that it was a process where we heard his name a lot. We definitely heard a lot about former President Trump, and we definitely discussed him a lot in the room. And I will say that when this list comes out, there are no major plot twists waiting for you.
It's all like a game. Meanwhile, Willis has also regularly appeared to express her own personal opinions that what Trump did was illegal. After all, the key legal question is, did he have what's called corrupt intent? And she's made it clear that in Trump's call with Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger, where he asked him to find those 11,000 plus votes, that he had that corrupt intent.
You look at facts to see, did they really have intent? Did they understand what they were doing? Detailed facts become important, like
asking for a specific number and then going back to investigate and understand that that number is just one more than the number that is needed. It lets you know that someone had a clear mind. They understood what they were doing.
So if you know that, why has it taken 2.5 years? It just feels like she's been milking this. And that's not all. She has also overtly politicized it. Last July, less than 2 weeks after Willis subpoenaed South Carolina Senator Lindsey Graham, she used her campaign Twitter account to tweet out a cartoon, which showed her fishing Graham out of a swamp with what appears to be a depiction of Trump saying, quote, "I know you'll do the right thing for the swamp, Lindsey." All the while, her campaign was using the account to solicit donations. Can you imagine if that was a Republican prosecutor seemingly exploiting the subpoena, criminal subpoena, of a progressive liberal Democrat to solicit campaign donations? There'd be no end to the mainstream media's hysteria. Accusations of political bias, etc. Now, this is a criminal case. And this wasn't the only time, by the way. Willis and her surrogates have referenced the Trump investigation to solicit followers, tweets, and donations for her campaign. And that doesn't even address the documented conflict of interest she had. Willis subpoenaed alleged fake elector Burt Jones, a Republican state senator who at the time of the subpoena was running for lieutenant governor. Willis then hosted a fundraiser for Jones's political opponent. Jones went on to win the election, but Fulton County Superior Court Judge Robert McBurney could not believe the actions of Willis. In a hearing, calling what she did a "what are you thinking" moment. And the court would have had every right to kick her off the entire investigation. But even if you don't think her actions alone up to this point warrant ending the investigation, most importantly, the new federal indictment makes Willis's case unnecessary. It goes into depth on the Georgia allegations. Quote, "On January 2nd, 4 days before Congress's certification proceeding, the defendant and others called Georgia Secretary of State. During the call, the defendant lied to the Georgia Secretary of State to induce him to alter Georgia's popular vote count and call into question the validity of Biden's elector votes, which had been transmitted to Congress weeks before." Now, why do we need another case brought on basically the same set of facts? Jack Smith goes state by state in the federal indictment, meticulously, addressing conduct in those other states. So now, are all of those state prosecutors going to bring cases against Trump too? To be clear, that's different from charging, for example, in Michigan, as they've done, charging the actual fake electors. I'm talking about charging Donald Trump. Now, some argue that if Donald Trump is reelected, he couldn't make the state charges go away. They would be pardon-proof. Only the federal cases he could go away. That's true. But A, that's not a legitimate reason for a prosecutor to act. And B, there is no way that state trial is going to happen anytime soon if Donald Trump wins. The U.S. Supreme Court barely let Bill Clinton get sued while in office. They will not let a state prosecutor try the sitting president of the United States in a criminal case. Even the DOJ itself has a policy seeking to limit multiple prosecutions. It says, quote, "The purpose of this policy is to protect persons charged with criminal conduct from the burdens associated with multiple prosecutions and punishments for substantially the same acts or prosecutions, to promote efficient utilization of department resources, and to promote coordination and cooperation between federal and state prosecutors." The reverse should be true as well. Look, Fani Willis is too far in politically to let this go. But the right thing to do would be to walk away from the prosecution of Trump in Georgia. And to those, by the way, who desperately want to see Donald Trump locked up and believe that any prosecution of him is a noble one, I think they also ignore that this case, this prosecution, will give Donald Trump and his supporters legitimate arguments to make about the unfairness of the prosecutor and the process. Joining me now is someone who vehemently disagrees with me, Dean Obeidallah, attorney and host of the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM's Progress channel. Dean, as always, welcome back to the show. All right, what am I getting wrong?
Thank you.
so much, Dan. I need my own show just to fact check and go through.
Well, there's not a single fact I got wrong. You can disagree with it.
Well, true. I should say opinion. The one thing I do agree is I wish these charges were brought much sooner. But she was only sworn in literally the day of the phone call with Brad Raffensperger that Donald Trump made to Brad Raffensperger. She was sworn in the day after that.
Right.
That's like her first day in office.
That's 2.5 years ago.
Special grand jury that investigates. Right. The special grand jury investigates, gives a report. And keep in mind, her office, Fulton County DA, has about 120 employees in full. The DOJ has tens of thousands. And look how long it took them to get an indictment. So to me, the delay, in my heart, I wish she was charged sooner. But look, this case looks like it's going to be a sprawling state racketeering case involving Donald Trump and others. We don't know the exact charges. A lot of arguments about state interference of the elections, a racketeering type of charge. But Dan, the charges in federal have nothing to do with the crimes in Georgia. Jack Smith did not charge Donald Trump with violating any Georgia state laws. And that's the sovereignty. They're protecting the sovereign state in their election. So I think she has an obligation to go forward. And I think it's great what she's doing. And I hope we get charges. She sent her letter in May. Between this Monday and next Monday, I think we're having an arraignment of Donald Trump and many others. This will not be just a Trump case. Many others through the next week. So
I assume you want to see him now charged in state courts around the country, right? So just keep him coming, right? Keep him coming.
Here's my advice. Don't commit crimes in various states if you don't want to be charged in those states. It's a simple thing. Like if you're going to commit a crime in various jurisdictions, you're going to be charged. Like now Trump wants a change of venue from D.C. Here's my advice. Don't commit a crime in Washington, D.C. Go commit a crime in a jurisdiction that has a favorable jury pool to you. He should have attempted a coup in West Virginia. He could have done great there with that jury. That's not how it works.
Do you disagree?
So yes, Dan, any single case he committed a crime, wherever he did, to overturn our election, to end this democratic republic, charge him and prosecute him.
Right. So do you disagree with the DOJ policy, and this is the reverse of it, which generally tries to avoid duplicative prosecutions? It sounds like when it comes to Donald Trump, for you, double it up, triple it up, quadruple it up, that's okay.
Well, I'm going to have lunch with Merrick Garland tomorrow. I'll raise this. No, I have no connection to Merrick Garland and DOJ policy. These are different sovereign jurisdictions. Federal jurisdiction,
of course they are. That's true. So, but that doesn't mean it's the right thing to do. I'm not saying that she doesn't have the right to do it. She does.
In like a normal case, Dan, like if it was maybe stole a car and joyrided through various states, maybe. This was an attempt to overturn a legitimate election based on lies, as Jack Smith has in the third line of the indictment. Yeah. Despite the defendant losing the election, he wanted to remain in power. Everything flows from that. To me, he should be punished and made an example of. So no one, not a Democratic demagogue, and there could be one day, or a Republican or anyone else, does what he did. He tried to end this democratic republic and our self-determination as a people. John Adams, he lost re-election. You wrote a book about it. After he lost re-election, he left. He set the template. Trump, first one not to do it. I think you and people like you are going to come to regret this Georgia case. Just the Georgia case. You're going to come to regret Fani Willis leading the prosecution. That she is going to provide all sorts of fodder, and it's going to be fair fodder for Donald Trump and his supporters to go after. And I think you're going to end up being sorry about it, but we shall see. I'll come back on the show and share my sorrow.
We shall see. It's not going to happen. Dean Obeidallah.
He's going to be convicted.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hey, thank you for watching. Please go to newsnationnow.com, newsnationnow.com, and you can find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button down below. Then you will get more of News Nation's fact-driven coverage.